The U.S. Supreme Court has weakened a key provision in the Voting Rights Act that helped root out racial discrimination in voting for more than half a century. This centers around a case concerning a congressional district in Louisiana. Now, it was created back in 2024, and a second black Democratic lawmaker was elected to Louisiana's Republican majority delegation. The state's second majority black district was drawn to address the diluted influence of minority voters. But in a decision handed down today, the court's conservative majority found the district was gerrymandered based on race. Drawing congressional maps based on race has been unconstitutional for a long time, but Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act was used as a guardrail against attempts to dilute minority voter influence. The landmark legislation was signed by President Lyndon Baines Johnson in 1965. Mark Updegrove, the president and CEO of the LBJ Foundation, is joining us to talk about the history and significance of this law. Mark, we thank you so much for your time today.
Of course, Ashley. Good to be with you.
You know, the Voting Rights Act to some degree really helped define Johnson's presidency. So I want you to talk to us about the pressures he was facing back in the 1960s about the issue of voting and this particular piece of legislation.
Well, Lyndon Johnson had gotten the Civil Rights Act of 1964 through in the first full year of his presidency. But it did not include a powerful voting rights provision. So he concentrated on the Voting Rights Act when he got elected to the presidency in his own right in 1964, and in 1965 was able to put it through. But this was a major step forward in the civil rights movement, because before that time, many people of color did not have free and unfettered access to the ballot box. He was helped by the civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King. That movement helped to show Americans the voting suppression that was happening systematically throughout our countries. So an enormous legislative achievement and a big advance for our country, Ashley.
It seems as though since that piece of legislation was signed into law by President Johnson, there have been efforts to chip away at it year after year after year. Why do you think it has drawn such ire?
Well, I can't say. I think partly it's because of an increasingly conservative judicial branch of our country. We see a Supreme Court that has chipped away at this, as you suggest, Ashley, for some years. And now the Voting Rights Act that was Lyndon Johnson's proudest legislative accomplishment, and that is really saying something given all that Lyndon Johnson did legislatively, probably the most important legislative president in the history of our country. But the fact that it has been compromised so severely, I think, would be an enormous disappointment for him. And as a consequence of this, I don't think we will have a government that is representative, that looks like our population at large, which I think is a problem. We want a government that looks like its people. This will further prevent that from happening, Ashley.
When you think about some of the opposition that President Johnson was facing at the time when it came to even signing this law, even getting this across the finish line, you know, what were some of the arguments back then?
Well, I think there was a states' right argument. States had the right to put whatever voting provisions they wanted to in place. And what the Voting Rights Act did is give the Department of Justice essentially oversight into the practices around voting, so that they were standardized to a certain degree, and they held certain standards so that certain segments of the population would not be discriminated against. So that was the main thing there. And again, because of that, people of color in particular had free and unfettered access to the ballot box, and they were able to vote in representatives who looked like them and had their interests at heart, Ashley.
Yeah, of course, it's only going to be a matter of time to see the impacts of today's decision. Mark Updegrove is the president and CEO of the LBJ Foundation. We thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Ashley.